Hello and welcome to the Learning Love Podcast. This is where we learn what love is and how to live it out in every area of life. My name is Dr. Mark A. Hicks, author of the book Learning Love. Love can be practical, tangible, and a realistic life for everyone regardless of your relationship experiences so far. So thank you for joining me as we spend some time learning love. Love is the answer. Now all we have to do is explore all the questions. And in today's question, we are going to explore the area of compassion. How do we have compassion? How do we build compassion in our life? And what happens if we don't have compassion? I think the reason compassion is so difficult is that we misunderstand exactly what it is. Compassion, I think, for a lot of people becomes equivalent to kindness, being nice. It's something that we want. It's something that's certainly nice to have, but is it really necessary? We like it when people are nice to us, but they don't have to be nice to us. If we go into a store and someone is rude, we don't like that. We don't appreciate that. But it doesn't keep us from doing business at the store. It doesn't ruin our whole life. It doesn't destroy us as a society for people to be rude sometimes. That people aren't very nice. Even within a family, sometimes the culture is just not nice. Sometimes they snap at each other, they fuss at each other, they make rude comments to one another on a regular basis. But that's just the culture of the family. And the family can still go on in a relatively good way as long as everyone accepts that as reality and they don't take it personally. You can still have a good family life. Now, it's not for everyone. Some people would take that very personally if their spouse or partner or their children or their brother or sister was rude to them. They would take that very personally, and it would cause a lot of strife within the relationship. But some people just get used to it within the family culture, sometimes within a neighborhood, sometimes within society itself. We just grow accustomed to a way of living. And so we know when we go out into the world, not everyone's going to be nice to us. Some people are going to be rude. Some people are going to act indifferent. Not everyone's going to be friendly. And basically, we've decided that's okay. Maybe it would be good if everyone was nice all the time, but it's not necessary. Compassion is different. I'm going to argue compassion is necessary for us to be healthy, for us to thrive, and even for us to survive. We have to have compassion. One of the primary reasons families fall apart, relationships fall apart, society falls apart, is because we lack compassion. Compassion is not the same thing as being nice. It's not the same thing as kindness. Compassion is this idea that we will have empathy, we will sympathize with a person's situation, and we will seek to help them even if they don't deserve it. Now let's let that sink in. Compassion is a willingness to help someone even if that person doesn't deserve it. Now there's a nuance here, and let me be clear about this. You cannot help someone who does not want help. That's impossible. If people don't want help, you can't help them. And many a do-gooder has really caused themselves a lot of problems in life by trying to help people that don't want help. For instance, if we look at the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, the first step is that we admitted we were powerless over our addiction. If we have an addiction, the first step is to admit we are powerless over it, that our lives have become unmanageable. The second step is that we came to believe a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, that there is help out there. There is a better day. We have to believe that. And third, we made the decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understood God. All three of these first steps are not about taking action to get better. It's about being willing to get better. Recognizing that we actually have a problem, recognizing that that problem can be addressed, that there can be a better day, there's a pathway to recovery, and then embracing that pathway, turning our will that craves those addictions over to the care of God as we understand God. These are the first three steps of the 12-step program. I use that to illustrate the idea that we cannot help people that don't want help. But compassion says when a person does want help, when they are willing to receive help, we will help them even if they don't deserve it. Now, this becomes a very powerful thing that we must have in society, that we must have within families, that we must have within relationships. We can sustain relationships under a lot of conditions that are not perfect. But if we are not willing to help one another in our brokenness, in our fallenness, in the midst of our mishaps, in our own stupidity, if we are not willing to help one another, even when we don't deserve the help, then we begin to fall apart in these relationships, in families, in society, you name it. Regardless of what area of connection and relationship we're talking about, compassion is a must. When we start to lose this, when we're not willing to help one another, unless it is deemed worthy, unless a person has proven they deserve it, what we end up with is a power hierarchy. And this is what many families struggle with. There is a power dynamic where someone is in charge of the family and rules through manipulation or through fear or through intimidation, maybe through violence. But for whatever reason, there is a family member that rules over the family, that is the unquestioned power in the family. And when you have that, help is given based on manipulation. Help is given based on loyalty. Help is given based on whether or not you are in good with the family. In dysfunctional families, there's always a quid pro quo. There are always strings attached. And the power structure becomes a tit for tat kind of battle, that I will give you the assistance, the help, the support, the attention that you need, but only if you adhere to certain conditions, that you meet certain criteria. This is a lack of compassion. This says, I don't care about you and your needs, and I'm not going to give you the help, the attention, the care that you need unless there is the proper reciprocal agreement. After all the things I've done for you, how dare you not make a decision that I want you to make? Okay, what we have there is not only manipulation, but really a lack of compassion. Compassion says, I will help you even if I don't feel you deserve it. A parent may truly feel disappointed if their child takes a different direction in life than they wanted them to take. But compassion says, I will be there to support you, care for you, and help you, even if I don't think you deserve it, even if I think you're making bad decisions, even if I think you're taking a wrong path. It doesn't mean that we watch somebody drive off the cliff. It doesn't mean that if someone decides to drop out of college to be a freestyle street juggler, that we wouldn't try to discuss that with them. But compassion means I care for you as a person regardless of your actions. Compassion means I care for you as a person even if I don't understand or agree with your decisions. and that I can have empathy, caring, concern, and a desire to help you in life, even if you have made decisions that I disagree with, even if I feel you don't deserve the help you're getting. Compassion is that element of love that is the unconditional. Now, let me give one qualifier here. That doesn't mean we accept abuse. Boundaries are still an important part of relationships. And if someone is abusive, we don't need to have a relationship with them. There needs to be boundaries there. We do not accept abusive treatment in our lives. However, we can still have compassion for that person in the sense that we don't have to attack them. We don't have to harm them back. We don't need to take revenge on them because of how bad they treated us. All those are forms of compassion as well. If someone has abused you, if we're living in this tit for tat kind of world where you give as good as you get, you may have every right to harm them in some way for the abuse they put upon you. You do not need to have a relationship with an abusive person. Boundaries need to be set. However, compassion says, I won't harm you. I will treat you right, even though you don't deserve it. I may not have a relationship with you because I have the right to not be harmed myself, but I'll have enough empathy to know that abusers were not born, they were created. That abusers are abusers because they were abused. Let me say that again. Abusers are abusers because they were abused. And I can have compassion, not taking revenge, treating that person well, and even having the desire to help them if they wish to get help. Compassion is what healthy families are built on. Compassion is what healthy societies are built on. When we have compassion, we're not just nice to people. It's more than that. It is empathy. It is sympathizing with what they've been through, understanding that we're all going through hardships. No one's got it together. Everyone's struggling in some way or another. No one has all the answers. And even people that seem to be just breezing through life, they've got their own problems. We're all struggling. And compassion recognizes that. It recognizes that life is just hard and it's complicated and we need to be there for one another. And yes, people are going to make mistakes and we can help them anyway. We can't help people that don't want help, and we can set boundaries so that we ourselves are not abused by people. But that doesn't eliminate compassion. Saying to our family, I support you, I care for you, and I will seek to help you even if I think you don't deserve it. My support for you is not based on your actions. It's based on love. When we say in society, we are not going to agree with one another, we're not always going to feel good about each other, but when we seek to care for one another, have empathy, sympathize with how much we're all struggling, recognize that no one has it together, and we seek to help one another even if that other person doesn't deserve it, we build a better society. We build families, neighborhoods, churches, organizations. We build society on compassion. When we lose that, we sink into power struggles, manipulation, intimidation, oppression, and control. And societies, organizations, neighborhoods, families that operate in that way, based on power structures, based on manipulation, based on intimidation, they lose any semblance of a healthy, happy, thriving relationship. They may still be together, but they are not in a happy, thriving, healthy situation. The only way we can build healthy families, healthy organizations, structures, groups, the only way we can have a healthy society is to build it on the idea of compassion. We will care for one another, even though we won't agree. We don't have to manipulate each other, intimidate one another, or rule over one another with intimidation, fear, or power. Instead, we care for one another. We don't engage in oppression of people that we disagree with, but instead, we care about those people we don't understand. We have empathy for people because we're all struggling. And we seek to help one another, even though we've all messed up and none of us really deserve it. We seek to help each other anyway. And so if you are struggling in your family, and if you look around your workplace and think this office culture is a mess, if you start looking at society and you think, what are we going to do about this? Start with compassion. Start within yourself. Start working within your family. Start working within your groups and your friends. Start working within your office to build compassion. To say to each other, we're all a mess. We're not going to agree. But despite that, we're not going to oppress. We're not going to fight. Instead, we're going to help each other as much as possible, recognizing that none of us deserve that help. When we can look realistically at the flaws and the mistakes of that other person and sympathize with what they've been through, have a measure of empathy knowing that we've all been through stuff, and saying, I wish to help that person, even though they may have brought a lot of this hardship on themselves. I would love to help that person, even if they don't deserve it, even if I adamantly disagree with them. When we can say that to our family members, when we can say that to our spouse, you have not always acted the way I wanted you to act. You have not always acted well, but I want to be there for you. I want to care for you. I want to help you, even if you don't deserve it. We start to change the course of the marriage. When we say to our family, our friends, our co-workers, when we say to each other in society, I care for you as a person, not based on your worthiness, but just the fact that you are a person, and I wish to help you just because of who you are, whether you deserve it or not. When we carry that into society, we change the world, but we have to do it one family, one relationship, one household at a time. Thank you for joining me on the Learning Love podcast. If you're ready to build your life of love, please go to my website, markahicks.com, and get my free ebook, The 5 Components of Love. And keep an eye out for my new book, Learning Love, Building a Life That Matters and Healthy Relationships That Last. It will be available through Morgan James Publishing in 2025. Pre-orders will be available soon. And remember, love is the answer. Now all we have to do is explore all the questions. Love well, everyone.